Salut, bonjour, and welcome to francofille, a creative podcast. My name is Devin, and this is where I document my knitting and other fiber-related crafting. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much for coming by and checking me out. And if you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry at @BDevin. You can also find my Etsy shop Instagram at francofille, same name as the podcast. We've got a podcast group on Ravelry that is a little bit inactive as I have had a very rough time staying on top of show notes. If you've been watching the last handful of episodes, it's kind of been a slow decline of when I remember to post show notes. Eventually I will post show notes. Yeah. If you like show notes, let me know. Comments below. I think we've been over this before, but I feel like it's important to check in every so often. Anyway, podcast group. When there are knit-alongs and things like that, it's where I post all those relevant things. And if you're looking for pattern inspiration, project inspiration, especially for like socks and fingering weight things, for sure go through and check out those finished objects threads. There's a lot of really great stuff you guys have finished and shared over there. So all that's going on. I did mention in Etsy shop, I do sell hand-dyed yarn. Got an update that I will talk about at the very end of the podcast, and all that good stuff. It's been 2 weeks, accidentally, maybe almost 3, since my last episode. I will talk a little bit about all of that in just a minute. But yeah, as you can tell from the rundown over here, I've got quite a bit of knitting to talk to you guys about. It's been a productive 2 weeks, even if I have not been here recording episodes. So sit back, relax, grab your knitting, maybe something to drink, and let's just dive right in. All right, so like I said, it's been a little bit since my last episode. I'd meant to record one 2 weeks ago. Yes, so the very end of June. That's right, we're in July now. But the timing just really didn't work out. Jordan is up in upstate New York teaching for the next 6 weeks. And so he left the beginning of that last week in June, and yeah, I kind of just wanted to spend every last minute I could with him, obviously. So recording a podcast just didn't fit into that schedule, and then I was actually out of town just a couple days later for about a week. I had a sorority conference to go to, now that I'm back involved in that again. And it was great, don't get me wrong, like absolutely wonderful. Even managed to sneak a little bit of knitting in during some meetings, but yeah, just kind of getting myself prepared for all of that, packing and making sure I had everything I needed. Yeah, there just really wasn't time to squeeze a podcast episode in there, so I'm sorry. I got back on Sunday. Today is Wednesday, so I've just kind of been getting back in the swing of things, getting back into some normal routines after being away and, you know, being on my own again for the first time in a little while. So it's a little weird. Not gonna lie, it's a little bit strange. So yeah, you know, some stuff to talk about. But since I last saw you guys, since I last talked to you guys, I have cast on and finished 2 projects. I have cast on 3 more projects and put good dents into 3 other projects. Like, I've been doing a lot of knitting in all this time. I just haven't been able to carve out the time to actually record an episode, right? So yeah, let's start with the finished objects. So the finished objects, I've got a hat, a little beret style hat that actually apparently still has an end that needs to be woven in. I'm just gonna tuck that in. And a pair of fingerless mitts, right? I'll show you up in more detail in a second. But these are all out of a single skein of my Polwarth base. I decided about two and a half weeks ago that I really wanted to go ahead and try out all of my new bases. Because, you know, I mean, you as a dyer, just handling the yarn, you can kind of get a feel for what it's like, its qualities, all that kind of stuff. But there's really nothing that compares to just actually working with a yarn to really get an idea of, you know, what it's like, how it holds up, all that kind of good stuff. And this Polwarth is unlike anything I've worked with before. I was a little bit curious about it because it's not as soft as Merino, like in the skein. It kind of feels more like a BFL, like a blue face luster, or sort of like a hard wearing sock yarn, right? Like a Regia and Opal or something like that in its skein form, right? So that kind of made me a little curious about it. It also, when it dyes, trying to see if I've got, every example I have is just at the bottom of a pile. That may be the case at the moment. It dyes up, it takes dye really vibrantly, right? So if I'm dyeing up some Polwarth and some Alpaca or some Merino, kind of all at once in one pot, it's almost like the Polwarth is like a magnet that just kind of attracts all of the dye to it and makes everything else a little less vibrant, right? It really takes the dye very strongly. Yeah, I'll show you. I've got a mountain of yarn next to me that I'm trying not to let topple. All right, so like as strong of an example as I possibly can find. I've got Alpaca here on my left and Polwarth on my right. These were dyed in the exact same pot, right? Dye stock into the pot, add the yarn, and like this is, yeah, exactly what I mean. So part of the reason for that is that the Polwarth is superwash, the Alpaca is not, right? So that kind of affects how it takes up the dye. But yeah, so I was kind of, it's different. It's different than my other bases, just in a lot of different ways. So I was really curious about what it's like to work with. And so I grabbed a skein of à la Bastide, right? Actually, I caked it up. And I decided I was going to knit myself kind of a cool early spring sort of set. Because most of my hats and my gloves and stuff are either for like, they're fall colors or they're like winter colors. I don't really have anything that's springy. So decided to kind of go with that and just kind of came up with a slouchy beret style hat. And like I said, some fingerless mitts. The hat, actually I'll show that first, doesn't have a pattern. I just kind of winged it, but it is kind of loosely, the motifs are pulled from my Honeybeams cowl pattern, right? I just kind of translated that into a slouchy hat, which is kind of my favorite style. If I'm doing a slouchy hat too, I prefer the beret style to like a slouchy beanie, just because I find it fits my head better. But yeah, and then the fingerless mitts are a slightly modified version of the carbon fingerless mitts, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. All right, I've knit it before. I made a pair of fingerless mitts for my mom, right, using this pattern before. I modified it to just have a plain stockinette palm. But yeah, so there is that. And I actually really love this base. I'm actually gonna have to take this off because I'm already overheating. It's really warm and it's not soft like an alpaca or a cashmere is soft, but it's more like soft in like that kind of fluffy, woolly, favorite wool sweater kind of way, right? It's a different kind of, it's not a silky, smooth softness. It's more like like a sheepy softness, right? Yeah, and just as you're knitting it up, it softens up so much. It's really, really nice, really cool, and really, really just a joy to work with. So yeah, I've got my own little matching set, which I'm excited about. I've never actually done that before. And I'm really annoyed that it's like 90 degrees out and I can't wear it immediately, but that's okay. I'm gonna go stick that in with my little lavender scented box of hand knits, and I'll be ready to pull it out when the weather finally dips down. I mean, you know, like the first day it's 65. It's still gonna be too hot to actually wear them, but I will break them out and give it a shot anyway. Like there's part of me that's tempted to just bring them into the basement and just have them to wear in the dye studio when I'm doing non-dyeing work. Tempted, but I will be good. But yeah, so definitely can personally now highly recommend that Polwarth base. Because it's just kind of like warm and cozy and kind of sheepy goodness, you know? And super vibrant. So yeah. Also, if you're curious as to how Arabesque knits up, there it is in the stockinette form. So it's kind of delightfully subtle, the differences between the blue and the yellow. And those speckles are just kind of everything, right? They just kind of add some interest. I love it. And I really can't recommend this pattern highly enough. It's really straightforward, a really, really straightforward knit. And that stitch motif is really, really effective and amazingly simple to do once you kind of wrap your mind around it. I love a good slip stitch pattern. So yeah. And then this again. And the best part, like the other thing I wanted to mention, right? I got a pair of fingerless mitts and a hat, and I still have about 20 grams of yarn left, right? All of this from one skein. So that is definitely a plus, right? So that's what I've gotten finished since I last talked to you. What else? All right. We will do, yeah, we're moving on to the socks. I finally finished the first of my Pixel Rise socks, right? These were close to done last time I talked to you. I think at that point I was maybe in the yellow. I still had to do this white cuff, and I think I still had to put the heel in. I must have, because it's afterthought. But yeah, I really, really, really love how this sock turned out. I was a little bit nervous that it was going to be too tight, just because, I mean, A, it's color work, and color work tends to be a tighter fabric. And then again, I mean, I did bump up all of I used the larger size of the pattern, right? I did a 72 stitch count. And I believe I knitted on either US size 1s or 1.5s. I have that written down, so I will be able to make a matching sock. But yes, I'm just messing around with this at the moment. But yeah, I'm really in love with the way it knit up. I love these socks. They fit me. I'm really excited about that. They are another very warm and cozy item. I'm definitely going to be excited to get some wear out of. The white, the contrasting color is Knit Pick Stroll, right? Nice and affordable sock yarn, very soft and cozy. And then the striping colorwork part, that is all out of a set of mini skeins from Yarn Company. So there's 1, 2, I think there's 8 different colors. And so I just repeated them, right? I went through the color repeat twice. So yeah, excellent pattern, really clearly written. Yeah, I'm really in love with these socks, and I think I will definitely be making another pair of Pixel Rise socks at some point as well. It's just such a great way to use up either mini skeins or scraps or whatever. Kind of just a delightful little Frankenstock sock that looks a little bit more purposeful than just the stripes of random extra sock yarn. Yeah, love these. Eventually I will cast on the second one, but it'll be a minute before that happens, as I've got 3 other sock projects that I'm actively working on. I think I've got at least one other one that's just kind of hanging out on the needles. So the other one that I've got that I can show you that is a hoe is, again, something brand new that I'm almost I'm more than halfway finished with, that you haven't seen. I decided for the 4th of July and for Bastille Day and all that kind of stuff coming up to come up with a red, white, and blue colorway. It is, see it caked up here, right? Red, white, and blue. I named the colorway Liberté, Liberty, right? Playing on both themes in both like French civic history and American civics. Yeah, and both the French flag and the American flag are red, white, and blue, or blue, white, and red, as the case may be. So yeah, it's a micro striping colorway, as you can tell. So you get about 1 row of blue and then 1 row of red and white speckles. And it just kind of, I don't know, I love the way this kind of yarn knits up. Yeah, so I've got one done, and I'm on to number 2. I've gotten past the toe decreases. I'm just at the point of zooming along. And my goal is to have these done by Bastille Day, so that'd be the 14th. So I've got about 9 days to go, and I think I'll be able to do that without much issue. If I decide to actually continue knitting on it instead of, you know, putting it down and ignoring it for several weeks, as sometimes happens with my projects. But yeah, what to say. Using my French vanilla, I'm using my French vanilla sock recipe, Afterthought heel. I did these toe up with my sideways toe, and then I decided to go with a 1x1 twisted rib for the cuff. And I actually really love the way that twisted rib came out. So yeah, this is also part of my thought with this was, you know, I wanted to do something fun. I hosted a giveaway on Instagram for a skein of this and my favorite sock needles, Chiao Goose. So one more reason to follow that francofille Knits Instagram account. I do giveaways and things like that over there. But also I wanted to knit up a pair of socks in this new chaussette base, right? And so that just kind of seemed like a perfect chance. And yeah, it is a delight to work with. It's really soft. Again, I feel like soft is not an adequate term for describing yarn. It reminds me a lot of Knit Pick Stroll with that kind of that hand feel. Right, and so it's, or like Felici, which I think probably is the same base, like Stroll and Felici, not the same as my base. I know it can't be because the nylon percentages are different, but it's that same sort of texture, right? It's very kind of very smooth, and kind of gives a surprisingly sort of thick and squishy sort of fabric, right? So yeah, I'm really excited about these. I'm gonna be throwing these on as soon as I get them finished. I have no doubt about that, because I actually do wear socks during the summer, not outside, but when I am just kind of hanging out at home, like I will hang out in shorts and a t-shirt and wool socks. My feet get cold. What can I say? Yeah, so really thrilled with that, and again, really excited that I love that base as well. So yeah, I could see that base being beautiful. I mean, obviously I'm in love with it for socks, but I think it could actually have a really nice drape for, you know, shawls and cowls or anything else like that too. Yeah, really kind of in love with it. It's a very versatile base, and just kind of a nice plump round yarn, right? It's a 4-ply. yeah, just a very nice plump round yarn. It's a 4-ply, so it's just got a really nice evenness to it. And yeah, I love the way it takes up the dye, all that kind of good stuff. Really like this base. So that is sock project number 2. Number 3 is I am continuing, sorry, I'm like reaching. So, whoop, and yarn, man down. I am continuing to make progress on my second pair of Hirondelle socks. Sadly, I did miss that cutoff, that deadline, for the knit along I was doing these socks for. I apparently took it a little too easy. Mostly I got obsessed, I got sidetracked with other projects. I really wanted to try out my own bases, and that kind of sidetracked me from working on this project. But I think last episode I showed you guys that this was a hoe. So I've got one sock done, and I am pretty well on my way to having the leg done of that second sock. So again, I'm just loving this. This is hand knits and things into the Great Unknown on her John Henry base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. And it's such a cool colorway, right? It's got this really beautiful sort of complex tonal mauve base with flecks and speckles of green and dark purple and turquoise, right? And it's just really absolutely gorgeous, right? I mean, the colorway just kind of blows me away. And amazingly, like, works so well for the pattern. I really did not expect that. It really does, right? It's just awesome. So yeah, I'm really, really excited to be close to done on these socks, to continue to make progress on them. Again, I have no doubt these are gonna get a lot of wear this fall. Right? So continuing to make progress on all of that. Yeah, all of these socks I'm knitting up on Xiaogus. They are just hands down my absolute favorite needles. Both the fixed circulars like these and I have the interchangeable set as well, and it's just yeah, I do a lot of adjusting of my needles with my index fingers as I knit, just kind of a habit, and they are pointy enough to be good for like lace knitting and all that, but not so pointy that they hurt my fingers when I'm doing the adjustments. Really smooth joins. Love the memoryless cable, right? Absolutely. And you can get them like relatively inexpensively on Amazon too, which when you don't really have a local yarn shop is a really solid point. I mean, honestly, it's not as good of a price point as say like Knit Picks, but that join, right, between the cable and the steel is so much smoother on these. That was starting to drive me nuts on my Knit Picks fixed circulars that I was using. So you get what you pay for, but even still, they're not that crazy expensive. And I think, I mean, if you're again shopping for them on Amazon, I think it's cheaper than Hiya-Hiya's. So, and they're more substantial. They feel stronger than Hiya-Hiya's do. I have bent Hiya-Hiya's before. Not a fan. But yeah, so there's that. And then one more pair of socks to show you because, okay, so my justification for this last pair of socks was I had that sorority conference I was going to. I knew I was going to be gone for 5 days in a lot of meetings. Yeah, and so I kind of knew that I was going to have some knitting time on my hands, especially with traveling, airports, and all that kind of stuff. I knew I wanted some very vanilla projects to work on, right? Things that I can do without paying much attention to, right? All muscle memory for my vanilla sock knitting. So I brought the Liberté, right, the red, white, and blue socks. And decided just in case, I wasn't sure how much time I would have, whether I would have enough time to finish those and cast on a new project or not. But I always over prepare or overpack anyway. So I decided to bring an extra ball of yarn just in case I had enough time to actually finish that pair of socks. And while I didn't finish them, obviously, I am glad that I brought that second pair, or that second ball, because I was able to finish that one sock while I was in a meeting, but could not remember for the life of me off the top of my head how to do Judy's Magic Cast On, and didn't want to go through the wanted to focus enough on the meeting I was in, and I knew like looking up Judy's Magic Cast On online and all that kind of stuff was just going to be way too distracting. So instead, I cast on a top down, a cuff down sock with that other ball of yarn, because I knew I could at least do that and pay attention to the speaker. Right? I think this was actually during a luncheon speaker, not during a meeting per se, but at conferences, lunches are really meetings anyway. Right? So, yeah. This is West Yorkshire Spinners. Hold on, let's see if I have the ball band with me. Sorry, the clacking is my current favorite sock bag. That's got my little sock notes and clippers. Fun fact, TSA didn't even look twice at this thing, which was really exciting. All right, my little snippers. So, if you are a sock knitter who is going traveling, I've literally never had an issue with TSA. That could be for a variety of reasons, but yeah, just kind of a thing to know. I know like the circular blades, right, those sort of yarn cutters and scissors can pose problems. These little Hiya Kitty snips, no issue whatsoever. Anyway, that's all a digression. The yarn I was showing you. All right, this fun ball. This is West Yorkshire Spinners, signature 4-ply, and the colorway is not on the ball band. I want to say, oh, I'm gonna make it up and be totally wrong. They've got like a line of colorways that's all bird named that are these kind of crazy, awesome self-striping. And I want to say it's either like heron or kingfisher. It's some water-related bird, I think. Or I could be totally making that up. But yeah, I've gotten a fair bit done on these. A lot of my meetings, I'm working with this team of 5 other women, and we spent 15 hours last week revising our organization's rule book, which sounds really tedious, but was actually kind of fun. But a lot of the knitting got done during that. So thinking and knitting all at the same time. But you can see from the little bulb thing I've got there, right, that I've got a couple more inches to go before I've got my toe decreases on my first sock. And yeah, I love this. I picked up this ball and another when I got my extra skein of Madeline Tosh whiskers for my sweater on, is it Jimmy Bean's wool? I think that's the one that I used. It's either that or Webb's, one of the big online yarn stores. I never remember which one I'm actually shopping at, because for some reason in my mind they're basically the same thing, even though obviously 2 different companies. I think it's the one that's based out of Colorado or Nevada. So I think that's Jimmy Bean's. Anyway, they've got West Yorkshire Spinners, if you're curious. I had never worked with it before. I got a ball of it from Mina last summer. But yeah, so making some progress. These are also going to be some delightful, fun socks this fall. I am such an uber nerd that part of the reason I also picked this colorway this ball of yarn to travel with me is that our sorority colors are blue and white. So, yep, I'm that girl. What can I say? Yep. Really, these are just fun. I mean, these are really just as addicting as sock knitting gets, right? Yeah, so more of my vanilla socks. I love that pattern. I really love the way those fit. I've knit a ton of socks using that pattern now, and they all just fit my feet perfectly. You know, haven't had issues with them being too tight across the instep or slipping down, or, you know, having like a baggy heel, which does happen to me with other socks. So yeah, really just, I love that pattern. It fits me really, really well. So yeah, it's free on Ravelry too, so go check it out. If you're looking for a vanilla sock pattern. And I've got, like I said before, I think, both toe up and cuff down versions on there. It's an afterthought heel too, and I give directions for either using a scrap of yarn to mark your heel, or doing like the cut in version, which is what I've been doing lately. Is that I'm finding that's a little bit easier, to be honest, in terms of just having a project on the go. But yeah, that is plenty of sock talk. My sock knitting adventures continue. I will eventually have a ton of finished pairs of socks. Eventually, but I've got a bunch of half-finished socks. My mom was asking me the other day when she saw me knitting on yet another pair of socks. Why I had so many. She asked me first how many I had. I think I gave some sort of rough estimate of, I've got to have a good 30 to 45 pairs of hand knit socks at this point. Yeah. And she just kind of looked at me. But, I mean, why not? Why not? I love knitting socks. It makes me really happy. And I get a lot of wear out of them. So there's no reason to feel bad about having so many pairs of something that I love, you know, especially when, like, the entire process of it for me is something that I enjoy doing. You know? The more hand knit socks, the better, I say. Oh yeah. Let's see what else. Next is, oh yeah, the alpaca cowl. One more project that I've cast on and gotten very far on, actually, since I last talked to you. This is again in pursuit of testing out my own new bases. As I drop stitches, I decided to cast on a Star Showers cowl. It's a pattern that I have knit before without finishing. I ripped it out because the opening for the neck just wasn't stretchy enough on my last version of it, but it's definitely plenty stretchy now. And this is out of my alpaca base, or my Alps base, in the Ciel Doré, right, Golden Sky colorway. Got one more skein of it on alpaca in the shop. And it is, I'm in love with this base. This, I think, is my favorite of my bases. It is so light, so airy, so incredibly soft. Oh, soft is a tricky word. It's really silky and really cozy. I know it's gonna be really, really cozy. Like, even just having it on my arms like this, like, it's warm. I'm like trying to stretch it out. As you can see, it's a cowl. It's joined in the round right now. And yeah, I really am in love with this. One of the things I'm really enjoying about knitting with this, beyond just the hand feel of knitting with baby alpaca, is that I've had an issue in the past with yarns that have a halo to them, like this does. It does have just kind of the slightest halo to it. Kind of getting that sort of ring of fiber, right? Just that kind of builds up on the yarn itself. Because when I tension my yarn, right, like, it's running through my hands. So there's a lot of friction going on over it. And I'm not getting that with this at all. Like there's not that little ring of fiber that I periodically have to like snip off of my working yarn, which gives me a lot of hope about the way it's gonna wear, right? Like the friction of knitting with it isn't causing it to pill at all or anything like that. So yeah, fingers crossed that this will wear really well. But right, so you can tell it's already really open. Right, that lacy motif just naturally is very open. I think once I block it, it's gonna open up even more. And that's just gonna be gorgeous. All right, there we go. Kind of actually able to get it stretched out there. All right, and I really like the way the colors are pooling or flashing together. All right, I was a little bit nervous about that, but I think they actually play together really nicely. Holding it back away so you can get a better idea of it. So let's see here. Again, like I was saying before with my other projects with my bases, I knit this because I wanted to try out my own base, right? The new bases. And chose this colorway because honestly, my thought was I love this pattern and I want a cowl that I'm going to be able to wear with black shirts, navy, or white, right? Those are my three main colors that I wear a lot of. I think that's gonna be, yeah, totally doable with this colorway. Right, this project. I'm trying to get out of the way so you can actually see it so the color shows up correctly. Right here. Yeah, it's a really intriguing construction, right? It works flat for a little bit before you join it. And I'm not going to say any other sort of things about it because it's a paid for pattern, but it's really cool. And I don't know, I think it's just really beautiful. I may make another one of these eventually. But yeah, I'm really, really in love with this alpaca base and kind of dreaming up now a bunch more projects for it. Yeah, I kind of want my next project with this base to be a 2-color brioche project. Already dreaming up like big, squishy, cozy shawls that are gonna have to happen. Yeah, I am definitely gonna be putting in a couple extra skeins of alpaca in my next bare yarn order so that I can just squirrel them away from myself immediately. I'm absolutely in love with this base. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. I love the difference in the way it takes up the dye, right? Just like I was showing you guys before, like that amazing difference between the alpaca and the Polwarth, right? Colorways on the alpaca base just look so much different than they do on any other base, just because of the way that non-superwash fiber takes up the dye. So if you're looking for a colorway that's gonna be a little bit more subtle, that's gonna be a little bit more blended and things like that, I definitely recommend alpaca. Not only that, but it's so cozy and it's gonna be so warm, even in a fingering weight, because alpaca is just naturally really insulating. But like I was saying, right, those speckles just kind of blend out. It's just so cool, right? Rather than getting really crisp defined ones. I know I feel like I talk about this every week. I'm just obsessed with this base. Yeah, it's everything I want in a yarn, to be honest. If my supplier had alpaca nylon blends for socks, I would have that. I would stock that immediately. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be a thing. But like that would be my ideal happy world, right? Alpaca sock knitting all day, every day. Probably best for everyone that that's not actually real. But anyway, yeah, I'm actually pretty close to done on this cowl already. I think I've got 2 more of these sections to go. And so that's almost done. Again, perfect timing for the middle of July. it's gonna get a ton of wear right away. But yeah, doesn't matter. Summer knitting is all about planning for the fall, and I think this is gonna get a ton of wear this fall. Really excited. Yeah. And then finally, again, definitely a long-term planning for the fall sort of project. Got my last one that's gotten a little bit of love. And this is my breathing space sweater. Which again, is at the moment still rather difficult to display. But since I last showed you guys, I have finished the short rows. Right? And I'm back to working in the round on this. So, yeah. Working in the round still means working on a diagonal. It's kind of the fun construction-y bit of this sweater. But yeah, slow but steady progress. I am using Madeline Tosh Merino Light. My two colorways, sorry, I've got like just cakes of yarn all strewn around in front of me. My two colorways are Modern Fair Isle, which is this nice neutral base with gray and orange speckles, and Whiskers, which is this like perfect tonal neutral. It's, I mean, it's grayish, right? It's that perfect midpoint between gray and beige. Just a really warm gray. And yeah, I really love the way they work up together, right? It's just enough contrast for me. Right, it's not kind of crazy in your face, it's still fairly subtle, but it's enough that that's not just like, you don't look at it and you're confused. Like, am I seeing stripes or am I not? I am onto my second skein of Whiskers, just barely. So I am glad that I got that extra skein just in case. And yeah, I am, as of this morning, I was invited to, or encouraged to submit it for a knit along. And yeah, I haven't looked into the details of that knit along yet, but it sounds something that is right up my alley. It is the, excuse my language, but fuck it, I'm fine knit along, which is all about knitting sweaters for the body you have right now and not sort of your aspirational sort of body, right? There's like, you know, a lot of us, I'm sure, have had that thought of, well, I'd love to knit a sweater, but maybe when I lose 5, 10, 20 pounds, right? Like then, you know, then I'll have the body I want for hand knitting a sweater, you know, or something like that. It's like, no, like embrace the body you have and go ahead and knit yourself a sweater for it, you know? That sort of body positivity kind of thing. And that, when I saw that this morning, I was like, yes, 100% I'm getting behind that, Cal. That sounds perfect. So I will have more details on that knit along and all that kind of stuff next episode. But if you want to look into it before then, you can find out information about it on Instagram if you search the hashtag FIIFKAL. So yeah, yay Instagram for further encouraging both good things and more projects to cast on. But yeah, other than that, I guess it's time for the shop update section. I've got this pyramid of yarn sitting next to me, including a bunch of new stuff. So yeah, if you are interested in at least looking at some cool hand-dyed yarn and playing around with some color combos with me, stick around. All right, so I showed you already that kind of crazy difference. So in colors, right? This color, I decided I needed a new tonal, a new pink mauve-y kind of tonal. This is Rosé, right? On 3 of my bases, I've got it here on Chaussette, on Polwarth, which is Pyrenees, and Alps, which is Alpaca. Right, you can see that it's slightly different on all 3 of them, but I kind of just, I don't know, I needed a rosé colorway in my life. Again, as somebody who loves the south of France, rosé is just near and dear to my heart. But yeah, I needed that, and I also, you know, obviously just wanted that, but also wanted another tonal to pair with some of my current lineup of light and speckled kind of colorways. So let's see here. I'm trying to think of where to begin. Here, first of all, it goes beautifully with Slate Roof. Can we just talk about that for a second? All right, love that as like an 80s child. There's something about like a dusty rose and a gray blue that just is everything to me, right? I feel like that is the color of my childhood. Love those two together. Here I've got Senonc, right? I mean, if you want something super girly and adorable, I love that combo together. Right, 3-color project, you can't beat that. Like, that's gorgeous, if I do say so myself, right? Like, looking at the Alpaca, here it is with Apéritif, and I actually think that's a really like beautiful and subtle combo. I'm trying to get these in a good light so you can actually see. Right? Really think that would be a really beautiful 2-color project. Yeah. Like a 2-color, like a Fairy Hill shawl, I think that could be really gorgeous. Or even like a 2-color brioche. I think there's enough contrast between the two that could work really well. So there's that. I think even with something like Galanc, right, that works out surprisingly well. Again, just throw it in there with the Slate Roof. I love that. And well, that's actually even kind of cool. All right, throw in Herbe de Provence. There, you get the green, the blue, and the pink. Right, and these are sort of less speckled. It's not going to be kind of crazy heavily speckled. So that with the tonal, I think, would work really nicely together. So yeah, so new tonal colorway that's going to be in there. I do have a handful dyed up already that'll be ready to ship, but honestly that's going to be, I'm just going to list it normally as I do all of my tonals as a dyed to order. So you may get lucky and just get it ready to ship, or not, depending on how many, on what you order. I've got it ready to go on Polwarth Chaussette and Alpaca, not yet on Loire, the MCN base. Okay. In terms of other new colorways, I've got, just kind of grabbing things now. It's in the mood after going to Florida and being stuck in a convention center in a hotel for a week, not actually getting out to go out to the beach, but kind of just wanted a beachy kind of colorway. So it is a sandy and neutral, natural color base with all sorts of blues speckled on top. All right, so this is à la plage, or at the beach, and very much like a natural sort of beach kind of thing. Right? So just the sand and the ocean, right? That kind of feel. All right, and I love, if you can see the speckling, I've actually got 3 different blues all speckled in there. If you can see, if it'll actually focus in on that. So yeah, it just kind of gives a little extra depth to those speckles too, which is kind of fun and nice. So I've got that on Chaussette this week. Right? And just on Chaussette. But if ever you see, like if I've dyed up a colorway and I'm telling you I've got it this week ready to go, like ready to ship on one base, if you'd like to see it on another base or you'd like to order it on another base, send me a message. I'm happy to do that for you. I'll let you know, how quickly the turnaround is going to be and, what I've got available. The other new colorway, again, I just kind of went nuts and had fun, is a highly speckled colorway, right? Kind of more like my Monet, right? That kind of all over speckling. All cool colors, and I'm calling this one Mar, which is French for pond. right? Because it does kind of just have that watery sort of feel. It is different from Monet. The colors are different, including this sort of bright turquoisey aqua, right? But it's just got a whole bunch of different stuff going on in here. And it's got the micro speckles, it's got kind of the larger, kind of more faded open speckles, all that. I've got it on both Chaussette and Polwarth. Right? And honestly, I wanted a kind of crazy, heavily speckled colorway that would go well with some of these lighter, more lightly speckled, pastel-y kind of colorways. So again, it goes well with Herbe de Provence. Hello, Miss Layla. We will cut it later. So yeah, goes well with Herbe de Provence. Goes well with Sinonc. Right, that's kind of a crazy fun combo. Goes great with Slate Roof. That's actually, I really love that. Yeah, I even like it with Rosé. Where was the other one? There it is. Calanque. Right, they all just kind of go well together. So this is another option in terms of if you want a super speckly colorway to go with a more solid or more tonal or variegated colorway. Right? So I've just been dreaming of 2-color brioche projects. So that's kind of been the theme of my knitting, or not my knitting, but my dyeing, right? Coming up with combinations that would work well together for that sort of project. That's actually kind of cool. Right, à la plage and Calanque. But yeah, so I'm just kind of having fun in the dye pots. I am also going to be opening up a handful of pre-order spots for Liberté as well. I think I'm going to open up like maybe 4 spots, not a ton. But if you'd like your own pair of fun and festive patriotic socks, yeah, check that out. Pre-orders will be available. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else to show you guys. So those are my handful of new things. I do have a couple skeins of Ciel Doré on MCN. Got 1 skein left of it on Alpaca. Right. Yeah, sorry. I just saw this out of the corner of my eye, and this is just, I love this. Right. This is Mar and Sinonc together. That just screaming to be brioche. That's too good. Right? But anyway. Yeah, so that is what's been going on with me. That is yarny goodness. That is everything. I will most likely be back again next week, barring some unforeseen event. Hopefully with a couple finished pairs of socks to show you, and hopefully no new cast-ons, but you never know. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking with me. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys again soon. Bon tricot, happy knitting. Bye.